There was more craziness in Ferguson, Missouri last night. But with all that's going on in Missouri, are we missing the bigger picture? Is there something that we should be looking at and that we're not? We'll talk about that right after this.
I think while I lie awake and contemplate tonight, wearing me out. Well, maybe tomorrow the world will wake and get it right, but I have my doubts. During the day, well, I design machines of war that scream through the sky. 'Cause I, for one, I like to go to bed free at night under these stars and stripes. And I have my doubts that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts, and I have my doubts that we'll make it back out. Yes, I have my doubts. But to wind you up and pull the cord until you're spun right out, and I don't understand. Roll the dice and raise the price to feed the machine's mouth. Call it the progress of man. And I have my doubt that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubt. And I have my doubt that we'll make it back out. And I have my doubts. So I'll drink my stuff and raise some hell and shoot my guns to the end of my time. You can have the booze and go to hell and take the guns, but I know they won't be mine. And I have my doubt that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts. And I have my doubts that we'll make him back out. Yes, I have my doubts. So we're all messed up and out of touch. Let's text someone who's in the other room. So no wonder why we don't say hi or know anyone. I might as well move to the moon. So maybe I'm wrong, but I hope that I'm wrong. So maybe I'm wrong, but I hope that I'm wrong. The things I think while I lie awake and contemplate at night are wearing
Revelation 15. And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest. And after that I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was opened, and the 7 angels came out of the temple, having the 7 plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, and having their breasts girded with golden girdles. And one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 angels 7 golden vials, full of the wrath of God, who liveth for ever and ever. And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power. And no man was able to enter into the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were fulfilled.
Good evening. It's November 26, 2014. This is your host, Mike Callahan, and welcome to the Watchman News. I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving Eve, if there is such an animal. Wow, lots of news came past my way today. Lots of interesting news. I had a friend of mine, good friend of mine the other day, he asked me through social media, he asked me a question. He was like, you know, I wonder what we're not seeing. I wonder what we're missing with all this going on in Ferguson. And I knew some of the things. I knew we had the amnesty bill that was going through. I knew that, I knew that Obama had all kinds of other things that he was wanting to put in place. I think I saw somewhere in the numbers of 3,500 regulations that he's going to try and put into effect. Wow. So there's something that really has not gotten much attention and not much light for quite some time. And I'm not speaking about Ebola. I'm speaking about the situation with Russia and Crimea and that whole ordeal over there. It's pretty crazy stuff. So I've got some news on that, and it's really, really not looking too good over there as far as that's concerned. Hang on, I'm adjusting my mic here. It keeps falling. I so need a better mic. So anyway, I will get it. I'm trying not to make too much noise with it. Anyway, I really think it's something that we need to pay close attention to. I do think it's something that we ought to be concerned about. And I've got some news related to that will show just how serious the situation is getting over there, even though they really aren't bringing it out into the limelight like they should be. In fact, they're filling the news with everything else but that. So anyway, let's go ahead and get suspicious observers out of the way so I can get on with the news articles I've got for tonight. Hopefully I can speed through them as quickly as possible. Got some things to do in preparations for tomorrow after the show, and then I will, if things get heated, if things get crazy, I will bring it up tonight so you guys can see what is going on over there in Ferguson and all across the country for that matter. In fact, I saw a news article where even London was getting involved in the protests. Wow. It really doesn't matter which side you support, because I assume most people are taking a side from what I can see on social media, which I refuse to take any sides on the matter. Simple fact, we have a militarized police force that has to be stopped now. It's gotten so bad. I mean, we've got little kids getting killed. We've got, wow, just craziness, folks, just crazy. Okay, well, let me get on with suspicious observers, and I'll talk to you more about that in a moment.
Good morning, folks. As we wait for the next heliocentric planetary geometry, we've seen a complete calming of the Earth-facing side of our star. We've had no big flares or even moderate-sized ones, and this is as the sunspot number skyrockets. That new group center disk grew like crazy and went from this to this pretty much overnight. Let's zoom in on the three most Earth-facing active regions. They now each have some good size and bipolar magnetics, but none are mixing to a level that should produce big flares. A smart betting man would eye the new one and the trailing group as better candidates than the leading southern sunspots. Also have a new group cresting the limb now. A sunspot peak would add to the mid-level earthquake warning as the northern coronal hole faces Earth today. You can see it is green positive while the southern opening is red negative. We see some growing power to the northern hole compared with 2 days ago here on ISWA, and this happens as a dip in the coronal fields allows near-Earth influence to quickly slide back into positive. That won't last long. In the last 6 hours, Mercury has geocentrically conjoined Saturn over there on the right. Saturn looks so small by comparison because of how far away it is. Top quakes of the day were in South America, and actually it's the lower magnitude rumble that takes the cake, as I've never seen an earthquake there before, well off the fault line. We also had yet another China uptick. At least a handful of injuries have been reported. Let's quickly review what we know about the ice. In the Arctic, it bottomed out in 2012, but it spent most of this year 50% higher than those low marks. Antarctica has broken all-time high ice marks 3 years in a row, but AGW proponents say it doesn't matter because the ice is getting thinner. Whoops. Turns out that the only thinning portion is right above that massive underwater volcano in the western sheet, and the rest is much thicker than expected. Admit it. It's a little funny. A paper recommendation from Gatherer 314. Did you know that irradiance is all they look at for a solar climate impact? At least that was true. This makes more than 200 papers in the last 4 or 5 years on how space weather can affect the climate too. If you are shocked at the original omission, we have something in common. And this likely explains why the IPCC has failed to correctly predict anything for almost 20 years. I've also linked an article on geoengineering. Still no admissions of current use, but at least the experts are expressing caution, if not outright concern, over the proposition. Last article is about how a virus can take out billions of life forms in less than 2 weeks. Luckily, it's phytoplankton. It's linked for you below. We have a new tropical system developing near the Philippines. It is set to cross the country and continue on towards Vietnam. I'm also monitoring 2 systems in the Indian Ocean, one north, one south. In North America, I'm not sure which is more concerning, -35 creeping towards the border at this time of year, or the dip tremendously below average down into the Gulf states. We have multiple lows at play, each with a brief warm-up delivered on the eastern convergence, followed by bitter cold with the western drive of Arctic air southward. The snow line here is absurd. We've got watches both east and west today. An Atlantic low is driving moisture to the coastline there, while the 2 smaller flows from the last 36 hours remain and meet somewhere over France. We see yet another flow driving way north, only to crest back down under northern coastlines, and a familiar low to the southeast. No shocks in the purple weather alerts tonight. In Australia, you need to note how the flow up from the south collides along the entire northern arch of the country. Also got a strong moisture flow to New Zealand. Weather shares, always appreciated. Got some precipitation totals and shots of our star to close. It's 5:55 a.m. Eastern Time, and that's the news. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.
Thanks again to Ben Davidson for another wonderful report. Links down in the About tab as usual. I really can't say as always, because when I say that, I forget to put the link. So anyway, it is down there today. I remembered it. Wow. So I guess we'll get started off with what is going on in Ferguson, Missouri, or what has been going on in Ferguson, Missouri. Last night, if you didn't catch the live streams that I was restreaming on the show, well, after the show, you know what I mean. There's a 5-hour video there, recording of last night. And if you didn't catch that, the National Guard was out in force. Very few streams up. It was actually quite concerning to me because, well, I really do appreciate what the live streamers out there do. And I do understand the danger that they put themselves into. And it's not no fake danger, folks. That's some serious stuff. They make themselves subject to arrest. They make themselves subject to getting hurt. You know, and a lot of it's protesters. It's not looters. It's not rioters. A lot of it's protesters. Last night, I urge you, okay? The show from last night, like I say, it's 5 hours long. If you fast forward to about the 2.5 hour mark, you will see one of the most awesome displays. In my opinion, it's one of the most awesome displays of how to handle a situation or that type of situation. There was a clergy member, and there was a wall, actually like 2 walls of riot police, right? And they're standing on the streets and they're threatening to go on private property to arrest the protesters when the protesters weren't doing anything wrong. And so they had some negotiations and whatnot. And just the way that this man handled it was just amazing. I mean, he was straight to the point. He got the people to calm down. He used humor with it. And it really warms my heart to know that there's people out there that care enough and can see the big picture enough that they can do what they can do. And it's very touching. It's very good. So after the show, if you're interested in what I'm talking about, it's around the 2.5 hour mark into the show last night. It is absolutely wonderful. I'm going to clip that section out and put it probably, well, I'm sure here on YouTube as well as on the Watchman News Facebook page, which reminds me, if you're not a member of the Watchman News Facebook page and you're on Facebook, please join. It's just Facebook.com/Watchman News. There is no "the" in front of it, unlike I've had on many images I've already showed. You know, hey, nobody's perfect. But yeah, Facebook.com/Watchman News. If you go to the channel page, it's the little buttons there as well. So let's get on with the news. So I've been talking about different things being canceled. There's been concerts canceled and all that. And I really do honestly feel that it's not worried about people's safety and security. I think they're trying to drum up pressure. I think they're trying to get people upset, get them fired up. St. Louis Thanksgiving parade postponed due to unrest. The annual 2014 Christmas and St. Louis Thanksgiving Day parade has been postponed. News 11 has learned that at least one school district with a marching band slated to perform in the event has decided to pull out of the event because of security concerns. Another district with a band in the event, Melville, confirmed that it was notified of a change of date, potentially December 13th. The Christmas in St. Louis Foundation released the following statement Tuesday. Given the unrest in our community following the tragic death of Michael Brown, the Christmas in St. Louis Foundation is postponing the Ameren, Missouri Thanksgiving Day Parade until later this holiday season. More details will be shared once a new date is confirmed. In these challenging times, we encourage you to gather with your friends and loved ones to reflect and enjoy this special and unique American tradition. You know, I'm surprised they didn't use the old Ebola phrase in there and say out of abundance of caution, huh? Wow. I mean, that's you know, the craziness doesn't even go on during the day, you know? They really don't. It goes on at night. And I really do think, although I do think the protesters would have made themselves known, I really don't think that they would have been an issue other than the simple fact, one second, other than the simple fact of, you know, an interruption, you know, by those that can't be bothered by reality. But anyway, let's get on with it. So on with the spirit of cancellations. This one really gets me, right? Garth Brooks cites Ferguson for cancellation. And he ain't even going to St. Louis. Ain't, whatever. Don't smack me for my grammar. Singer Garth Brooks, I just got smacked. Singer Garth Brooks has canceled a Thanksgiving appearance on NBC's Tonight Show because he said it seemed distasteful. Given the reaction to the decision not to prosecute Ferguson, Missouri police officer Darren Wilson for the shooting of Michael Brown this summer. Garth Brooks has not canceled his show in St. Louis. NBC on Wednesday confirmed the postponement, saying Brooks was being replaced on the show by Whoopi Goldberg and Tom Colicchio. I guess that's how you pronounce it. For that, I'll tell you what, that's a replacement, huh? Brooks wrote on his Facebook page that he landed in New York on the night the grand jury's decision was announced to the news of the civil unrest that was going on in our nation. To spend the day promoting our stuff like nothing was wrong seemed distasteful to me. He offered to reschedule. There was no immediate comment from his spokesperson about what other appearances were canceled. So there you have it. You know, I don't understand that. I really don't. I just don't. I don't see how it's that distasteful. I guess he's got a new CD out or something. I don't see how that's distasteful to show up on a nighttime TV show and do what you were going to do. I don't get it, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Again, I don't see how it would possibly be distasteful, and I don't know. It just really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Anybody can figure that one out, let me know, please. So, again, this isn't just happening inside the person. Boy, I'm whipping through this quick tonight. And there is a video here. I will let our little video play. It will begin momentarily. These news websites always load real slow.
States in the United States after the grand jury's verdict in the Michael Brown shooting tonight. Miguel Marquez is in New York, and Miguel, people are out early, and there are a lot of them.
There are a lot of them, and there are separate groups tonight. That spark that was sparked off in Ferguson is now burning here in New York City. This is 14th Street. If you know the city, we're walking west on 14th, and they have completely shut it down. We're walking now on the opposite way that traffic is flowing. It's not clear where this crowd is going to go tonight. Several hundred people out here, hands in the air, protesting police brutality. It has been peaceful so far, and what NYPD is doing is being extraordinarily patient so far, same as they did last night. We walked about 8 miles last night, all the way up to Harlem. NYPD only clearing the way for them, making sure that the protesters were safe and that traffic didn't get out of control. The only time they stepped in is when the protesters tried to shut down bridges or tunnels, like today. They tried to take the Lincoln Tunnel and shut that down. That's when police moved in. Last night, it was the Triborough Bridge. If you can look here, you can see the traffic oncoming now and just how difficult it is for traffic to get through. Several hundred people here. It will take some time for them to come through here. The crowd has grown very, very rapidly, too. As they walk through the streets, people join. We expect that this will probably go on for some hours here in New York. Aaron?
Paul Verkammen is there in L.A. What are you seeing already tonight, Paul?
Well, so far, Aaron, a lot of chanting. We're hearing people waging peaceful protests here, quite by design. Many of the protesters telling me they wanted to march, they wanted to have their say. They laid down in some intersections, but everything went smoothly. And if Chris, go ahead and wheel up ahead, you can tell that this is Martin Luther King Boulevard, and the police have done a good job of sealing off the streets ahead of the protesters and preventing a confrontation. And then on the sides here, if you look, some people are coming out of their businesses and basically celebrating or applauding the protesters. As you pointed out, Aaron, it's been going smoothly. It's rather peaceful here in Los Angeles. Of course, it's the late afternoon, and most of these protesters say that they will continue to march for quite some time down this street. I'd say they've marched about 1.5 miles so far. Back to you, Aaron.
All right, thank you very much. As I said, still daylight. We'll see as darkness approaches how many people gather in L.A. and around the country. Here in New York, it is dark. The protests are in full swing.
And as far as I know, those protests are slated to continue once again tonight. I'll go ahead and read the article here because I think there's a lot in here that's not in that video. From New York and Los Angeles and dozens of cities in between, protesters flooded the streets to denounce some Missouri grand jury's decision not to indict Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson. A day after the country learned Wilson won't face criminal charges for killing unarmed teenager Michael Brown, protests sprouted up in more than 170 U.S. cities. That makes me feel good. I know a lot of people are against the protests, but I really do think if you take the emotion out of it, if you totally take race out of it, if you totally take a lot of the other factors out of it that shouldn't be a part of it to begin with, we need to stop the militarization of the police force, period. We've got to stop it. We've got to stop the police brutality. We've got to put an end to it. Some demonstrations blocked bridges, tunnels, and major highways. But unlike the violence that erupted in Ferguson on Monday night, the protests across the country Tuesday night were largely peaceful. New York, a massive protest wound its way from Union Square to FDR Drive and to the United Nations, Times Square, and Harlem. Now it's clear where we're going, said CNN's Miguel Marquez, who was interviewing protesters as they continued marching after midnight. One demonstrator said he didn't even know about the protest until he saw it pass by his workplace on Times Square. He decided to join in. That reminds me, last night it was quite humorous. I was restreaming a stream from Los Angeles, and there was a carload of people came up, and all of a sudden the car stopped amongst the protesters. People got out of the car and joined in with the protesters. It was I thought it was funny. I just want to help bring about change. Sometimes I am profiled based on my race, said the protester, who is black. Why is that needed? I think this is progress. See, that's what I'm saying, that they feel too much other stuff here to try and avoid the real problem. I think this is progress. Now we're going to make sure things are going to change. As they marched, some protesters chanted, "Mike Brown, Mike Brown." Police, who were nearby in large numbers, stayed back and let the marchers go. In Oakland, California, perhaps the greatest concentration of turmoil Tuesday night was in Oakland, where vandals smashed the windows of a car dealership and looted several businesses, including a T-Mobile cell phone store. Some also set several bonfires in the city. One row of bonfires stretched across the road, blocking off access. Footage from CNN affiliate KPIX showed. Some people were seen adding more items to the fires. Los Angeles, a stretch of the 101 freeway in Los Angeles was shut down in both directions after protesters took roadblocks from the streets along with debris and placed them on the freeway, police said. And demonstrators gathered outside of Los Angeles Police Department headquarters. Officer Sarah Fadden said protesters are demonstrating peacefully. Honey, is that written wrong?
Think so.
I swear that's not how you're supposed to write an article, but I could be wrong. An LAPD spokesman, it's at least hard to say,
That's redundant.
said officers are allowing people to vent. We have detained people. We don't have any property damage to speak of, Officer Jack Richter said. We are letting the people exercise their constitutional rights. In Boston, Mayor Marty Walsh estimated about 1,000 protesters took to the streets Tuesday night. The gathering has been largely peaceful. It's a beautiful thing to see, demonstrator Danielle Jose Older said. It is. It is. People that, whether you support what they're doing about it or not, people exercising their rights in this country is the most beautiful thing, aside from a newborn baby. I really think so. Denver, several hundred people took to the streets of Denver on Tuesday night, police said. Officers tried to prevent demonstrators from marching onto Interstate 25. Most protesters dispersed peacefully, but a small group refused and grabbed officers. Officers used pepper spray and 3 people were arrested, police said. Dallas, about 5 protesters were arrested after marching on Interstate 35, CNN affiliate WFAA said. Some 200 demonstrators gathered at Dallas Police headquarters before marching onto the interstate, the affiliate said. In Washington, protesters lay down on a sidewalk outside police headquarters as if dead, according to a tweet by Nikki Burdine of of CNN affiliate WUSA. Some had handwritten notes on their chest, Black Lives Matter. Why is it starting to feel like a Friday? On to Minneapolis. Wow, where did that go? A woman in a group blocking an intersection was run over by a car. The Star Tribune newspaper reported that the driver of the car honked at the protesters before knocking a few people onto the hood of the vehicle and apparently running over the woman's legs. She was hospitalized with very minor injuries, and there is several different videos of that incident on the internet. Chicago. About 200 members of the Black Youth Project staged a sit-in outside Mayor Rahm Emanuel's office Tuesday afternoon. They planned to be there for 28 hours. Protesters in the New York area briefly blocked one of the entrances to the Lincoln Tunnel Tuesday evening, but then headed off to the city's west side. In Atlanta, the Public Enemy anthem pumping from mounted speakers at a protest in downtown Atlanta captured the mood of the crowd Tuesday night. Fight the power, the rapper's voice shouted out over the speaker. Fight the powers that be. About 300 people tried to follow Public Enemy's advice when they gathered to protest the grand jury's decision. As helicopters circled above, black college students, white urban hipsters in skinny jeans, middle-aged socialists, and black militants in berets gathered for a raucous rally to vent their anger at the events in Ferguson. I hate words I'm not used to. They have it's what?
Rocket.
Rockets?
Yeah.
See, I get corrected. It's not ruckus though, is it?
Raucous.
Raucous. Never heard raucous. I'm gonna have to Google that one too. Okay. They have given us no justice. We will give them no peace. The demonstrators chanted as they massed in front of the underground Atlanta shopping district. Some protesters had also gathered outside CNN Center. It's just a travesty. A little Vine. I'm not real hip on all these Vines because it reminds me of Twitter, to be honest. And I hate the idea of somebody's thoughts being shortened down to 140 characters. At the same time, I hate the thought of video being shortened down to these small clips because, as you all know, we could put anything in just a quick, small little clip. So, yeah, not a real big fan of them. Some Atlanta protesters held signs that read "Enough," and we are all one bullet away from being a hashtag. That's a new way of using hashtag. One demonstrator wore a t-shirt that read, "Racism isn't over, but I'm over racism. It's a travesty. It's just not right," Shazar Brown said as she held up a sign that said, "Stop Killer Cops." 70 years ago, it was legal to kill black people, Brown says, referring to the spate of lynchings that spread through the U.S. in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It's essentially still legal. Atlanta, birthplace of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., also saw emotional reaction Monday night when about 200 students gathered at Morehouse College to hear the grand jury's decision. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd when it came. Some of the students at the historically black men's school looked at one another in disbelief. Others started to tear up, and a few stared ahead as their jaws dropped. Police sirens wailed in the distance as students chanted, "Ferguson's hell is America's hell." Wow. That's it's wild when the country will come together. But the sad thing is even though so many cities are holding protests, so many people in so many cities are speaking out, we're still divided. In fact, we're probably more divided now. And it's sad. It's sad. And it's because it's being made about race. Where is it being made about race? I definitely do not support what happened. I do not support Darren Wilson in any way whatsoever, but I do not think when he took those shots that racism was a thought in his head. I really don't. I honestly don't believe that. I believe he has issues. I believe he's a coward. I believe he murdered Michael Brown, look, I don't care what the grand jury said. The boy had bullets in the top of his head, meaning he was already down on the ground, laying down when he took that shot, at least that shot. Why was that shot necessary? Seriously. Come on. Let's get real. You know, maybe he did shoot him in self-defense, but then he murdered him in cold blood. I'll go so far to say that. I don't know. Of course, I wasn't there. None of us were. But, wow. I thought that was a really good report. That's why I took the time to read it all. There's a link down in the About tab. I figured I'd share this. It's an interactive map of where the fires are, the looting, the violence in the St. Louis area. So it's in the About tab. If you want that link, I'm sure they will be updating it as time goes on. So, yeah, I figured I would share that with you. On to something other than Ferguson, huh? A lot of people are probably going, thank goodness, huh? Me, it doesn't bother me so much. Remember how I keep telling you the economy and all this stuff, it all meshes together, it all goes together. This is another slap in economy's face. Dutch move 122 tons of gold out of the U.S. The Dutch central bank says it has recently shipped 122.5 tons of gold worth about 4 billion euros or $5 billion from safekeeping in New York back to its headquarters in Amsterdam. In a statement Friday morning, the bank said that its 612.5-ton national gold reserve is now divided 31% in Amsterdam, 31% in New York, 20% in Ottawa, Canada, and 18% in London. With its adjustment to the Dutch central bank joins other banks that are keeping a larger share of our gold supply in their own country, the bank said in a statement. In addition to a more balanced decision of the gold reserves, this may also contribute to a positive confidence effect with the public. And, you know, the thing of it is Germany just asked not real super long ago for their gold back, and they were more or less giving a, well, we'll give you a little bit here and a little bit there reply. And when Amsterdam asked for it, we pulled out 122.5 tons. The gold isn't there, folks. It's been all put in these paper derivatives and whatever all that fancy stuff is that I don't know nothing about. And thankfully I don't, because I wouldn't want to get involved in it. So let's get on pretty quickly. I got ten together. So Army cutting 500 majors starting next week. About 500 Army majors, some of them now serving in Afghanistan, will be receiving notices next week that they must leave the service as Army cuts troop strength to meet budget cuts. The outgoing Army Vice Chief of Staff said Friday, "We don't want to do this, but the Army has no choice under the constraints of Budget Control Act and the congressional sequester process," said General John F. Campbell. Many of the 1,100 captains who were cut earlier this month were serving in Afghanistan, and the same thing probably will happen with some of these majors, said Campbell, who has been confirmed by the Senate to take command of the International Security Assistance Force in Afghanistan. Reductions in force are always difficult, Campbell said, but informing the ones that are deployed is certainly the hardest. And the link's down in the About tab if you want to read that whole thing. I just, I wonder how much this has to do with the next story that I have for you. I did hear a lot of interesting information and news about this today. Links for all this stuff's down there. Hagel warned of rogue New World Order. Now he's fired. Well, I heard a report today that he flat out refused to fire any more high-level commanders and whatnot, that he refused, and he wasn't going to do it. Wow. Chuck Hagel has been fired by Obama from his position as Defense Secretary. Hagel, a former GOP senator, was appointed by Obama in early 2013 and therefore was scheduled to serve for the entirety of Obama's second term. Prior to his appointment, Hagel is said to have visited the White House in 2009 and personally warned Obama that he should look out for rogue elements within the Pentagon that were leading a new world order. Sounds like a previous president, doesn't it? Or actually maybe a couple of them. This was not reported on some internet conspiracy forum. It was a leading report published shortly before Hagel's appointment by Bob Woodward, an award-winning journalist and associate editor with the Washington Post. According to an account that Hagel gave, he told Obama, "We are at a time where there is a new world order. We don't control it. You must question everything, every assumption, everything they, the military and diplomats, tell you. Any assumption 10 years old is out of date. You need to question our role. You need to question the military. You need to question what we are using the military for." Hagel is said to have told the president. The Post report also stated that Hagel warned Obama about becoming bogged down in the ongoing war in Afghanistan, saying it would define Obama's first term. Hagel reportedly later privately questioned the wisdom of sending additional troops to join the conflict. If Hagel is confirmed, it appears likely he and the president will have a large task in navigating this new world order, the Post report concluded at the time. It remains to be discovered as to whether or not Hagel attempted to oust the rogue elements within the military-industrial complex. The last straw for Hagel, though, may have been the comments he made last week during a sit-down interview with Charlie Rose at the Pentagon. So they got a video. I never did see how long this
the Defense Department.
Well, let's take a listen. I haven't even heard this either, so we'll enjoy it together, huh?
We, the Defense Department, are being called upon to do more everywhere. I mean, look at the last 6 months where we now are involved where we weren't 6 months ago, and our budget continues to be cut. Something doesn't connect here, and that's going to have to change.
And if it doesn't?
Well, if it doesn't,
we will not have the resources to meet the challenges internationally.
We won't have the readiness. We won't have the capability. We won't have the long-term investments that this institution requires to stay ahead of everybody else, as we have since World War II, with a technological edge, with the ability to continue to recruit and retain the best people. You know, no institution has anything unless you have people. And it doesn't matter how much sophistication you have in the technology. If you don't have the right people, you don't have much. And all of this will come together as it is now with these huge, steep, abrupt cuts at a time the world is becoming more dangerous, not less dangerous, and we're being asked to do more.
Congressional leaders are not listening to you?
They're going to have an opportunity.
And more sequestration would be devastating.
Devastating. If this continues, all the chiefs, the Joint Chiefs have said this clearly, plainly. I've said it. General Dempsey said it. All our leaders of our institutions, that we will cut so deeply into readiness and to our ability to carry out our missions, and it will have a direct impact on every facet of our security. It can't help but have that. So I'm hopeful that this new Congress, which will come in January, will take the opportunity with new budget hearings, and we're going to have to get into that and make the point. I'm very hopeful that they will do the right thing and the responsible thing.
You can't do it by continuing resolution.
You can't do it by continuing resolution. Too dangerous. No, you can't run any institution by the uncertainty of maybe you will get funding in 6 months, maybe you won't, maybe it'll be the same, maybe it won't. And especially you can't run national security on the basis of hope of a continuing resolution.
And you're talking about running the largest institution in the world.
It is the largest institution in the world.
That says a lot in and of itself. Maybe I did these stories backwards. I don't know. I'll let you be the judge. But it seems like we're purging our military. We're purging all the commanders. We're purging members of the military. We're doing all these different things to weaken our nation and our nation's security, our real security, our military. Our security isn't here on the homeland with our police force. Security here on the homeland is a nice 45 sitting on your nightstand. And there's no substitution for that. A phone does not give you security. It just doesn't. It may allow somebody to come and clean up the mess, but it does not provide you security. And I'm just being blunt and frank here. You know, I promised in the beginning of doing this that I would not be politically correct. I would do my best to be correct. And that's all I'm doing. I don't like to mince words. I really don't. But you would think, you know, as far as national security is concerned, coming from other places, you would think that it would be utmost important to have a strong military, an adequate military. No, we're weakening our military and then dealing with probably the biggest tensions that this country has faced, real honest tensions, since, well, I'm going to say World War II, with, you know, without lack of having better knowledge of the subject. But anyway, this comes from RT. Surge in U.S. armored vehicles next to Russian borders. American armored vehicles sent to Poland and the Baltic states for military drills are to remain for the constant training of local troops and rotation of U.S. forces. More fighting vehicles will be pre-positioned at U.S. military bases in Germany. The U.S. Department of Defense intends to boost the number of its armored vehicles on the territory of the NATO member states in Eastern Europe. Next year, the number of M1 Abrams tanks and M2A3 Bradley fighting vehicles will reach 150 vehicles. The troops will come over and train, and they'll go back. The equipment will stay behind. The new appointed head of U.S. Army Forces in Europe, Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, told AFP in a phone interview from Estonia. This is going to be a lot cheaper than transporting tanks across the Atlantic for ongoing joint training missions of European and U.S. troops, which are currently deployed in the region for several months, he said on Tuesday. Deployment of additional hardware to Baltic states and Poland goes on within the framework of the U.S. Operation Atlantic Resolve effort established to reassure American allies in Eastern Europe anxious about a resurgent Russia. After the reunification of the Crimean Peninsula with Russia and the civil war in Ukraine waged between the coup-imposed government in Kiev and rebels in the eastern regions of the country, NATO members say they no longer feel secure. There we go with security again. Links down in the About tab if you want to read that big, long article about that. But you get the point, right? We're going to send more armored vehicles over there just for training, you know, just for training, right? But at the same time, let's take a look at the other side of the coin. Advanced Russian warplanes arrive in Crimea. Sorry, I love Russian planes. They're nice. I don't know. That's an Su-27. I like the Su-35, but there's nothing wrong with the 27 either. I like to play, and I say play, I like to fly in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and this is probably, well, the 35 is probably one of my favorite planes to fly. Not my favorite, but one of them. Anyway, what's that matter, huh? Russia's Air Force has moved some of its most sophisticated warplanes to Buildup near the Crimea's capital of Sevastopol and the Ukrainian border. Wow, it's so hard for me to say some of those names. The planes now at Buildup base boosting Russian air power in the Black Sea area included 10 upgraded Su-27 SM fighter planes and 4 Su-30 fighter bombers. Captain, that's, yeah, you say the name, of Russia's Black Sea Naval Fleet told the Russian news agency RIA Novosti Wednesday. It was reported earlier the air base would be significantly renovated for the planes and for other elements of a modernized air force expected at Buildup. The action could be seen as evidence of additional advanced armaments arriving near the border between Ukraine and Russia. Ground troops, as well as mechanized equipment such as tanks and armored personnel carriers, were observed entering Ukraine last month, and several days ago, a Mikoyan Su-31, Russia's most advanced interceptor plane, was seen arriving at a base on Russian territory near the Ukraine border. Prior to Russia's March annexation of Crimea to territory most countries still regarding as belonging to Ukraine, the Buildup base housed much of the Ukrainian Air Force. Some of those planes were returned, dismantled, to the Ukrainian Air Force, which has a large number of planes but is limited by underfunding and limited training. So that's what's really going on. We've got these little boys that are putting their little army men and putting more army men and more army men. I wish mommy and daddy would quit paying for those army men. You know, there's a definite buildup here. And while I think they are using Ferguson to disrupt this country and possibly to cause this country to fail, very possibly a civil war within our own country, we have to remember to look past our borders. You know, the economy is a global economy. It doesn't just rely solely on the United States. In fact, right now, if the economy did rely solely on the United States, and by that I mean we are in and of itself, we just supported ourselves, we'd be in a lot more trouble than we are right now. So if we take that in consideration, if we look at a very, very possible, very likely world war that we are setting up for, along with all the unrest in the country, you do the math. You know, tomorrow doesn't look so pretty, and that's just being realistic. I try not to cherry coat things. You know, I don't walk around every day, all day long, just doom and gloom, but I'm realistic. I look at what's going on. I refuse to put on rose-tinted glasses. That's not going to help anybody. Just not going to help anybody. That's what I got for you tonight. May God bless you. May He walk with you. Be one with your spirit. I do love you all. Hang in there. You guys have a happy Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful meal tomorrow. If you know somebody that doesn't have anywhere to go or doesn't have the money to have a meal, a nice meal, please invite them. Invite them into your home. Invite them into your heart. Make a difference in somebody's life. All right, hang in there. Have a good day. We'll see you soon.